Welcome to iAccessVO with Brian Fischler and Ed Plumacher. Making it happen with VoiceOver accessibility. And now, here's Brian and Ed.
Welcome back to yet another episode of iAccessVO. Hard to believe there's only 1 month left in the calendar year, Ed. How was your Thanksgiving?
Mine was good, Brian. How'd you make out? Nobody was chasing you down trying to get an extra turkey?
No, it's just the fam and me. I was down in Florida, and something wrong about 85 degrees. Well, it wasn't really 85, but something wrong about shorts and Thanksgiving. It just doesn't feel right.
I tell you what, though, Brian, you are the only person I know that can go to Florida and come back whiter than you were when you left.
Well, I have a thing where they come with the car. I go right into the car and I make them drive into the garage. That way I'm affected by as little sunlight as possible. I'm the only person who my doctor's like, hey, have you ever thought of a tanning bed? We know how, a lot of people are, scared of skin cancer. They're like, no, you need to get a tan.
Yeah, well, that's what people have to understand. My co-host is Brian Casper Fischler.
No, it's Brian Hound Dog Fischler because, are you a hound dog, Ed?
Oh. I've been known to be a hound dog from time to time.
Well, I don't want to talk to you about your dog experiences. I want to talk to you about Hound, man. Have you been checking out the latest, greatest updates to Hound?
Actually, I did when you brought it back to my attention, because I think we first introduced our listeners to Hound. Oh God, it's got to be like 6 or 7 months ago, and we were pretty impressed with it at that time. And it's made some nice improvements and some nice strides. I mean, I'll tell you what I like about it. If you ask it to do something, you can continue the conversation without having to repeat everything. So, like if you ask it what the temperature is outside, it'll tell you, and then all you have to do is say, what about tomorrow? And it'll tell you tomorrow's temperature. It's maintaining that information, which is pretty cool.
That's obviously I have the Echo devices, but the one thing that the Google Home supposedly does better than the Echo devices is that continuing conversation, which I think the Echo will get to eventually. But I was pretty happy with this update to Hound. First off, we got to love that everything is still very accessible. But being able to just say what's the news and getting the latest news clip playing and everything, and they added a new because we have to have music everywhere. They added this new music feature where you could play different songs from iTunes. Not that I tested it out, but I can't see myself actually using that feature.
Well, when it came up for me, I don't subscribe to Apple Music or anything, so it came up and it asked me where it wanted me to search for my music, and I highlighted YouTube, and it worked out really well. I just gave it the artist name and the song, and it just started playing it. It was a lot like some of the other apps out there. Like I'm a big fan of YT Music. I use that a lot, but Hound seems to be just as intuitive, and looks like it almost has the exact same interface with YouTube. It was great.
Yeah, well, I actually had to select YouTube. Well, it didn't offer me an Apple Music. I just didn't want to confuse listeners there. It was YouTube for me as well. It had YouTube and one other option, which I wasn't sure what it was. So I also selected the YouTube. I guess you have to select that the first time, and got me some of my Bon Jovi playing.
Okay, so let me get this straight. It's okay for you not to confuse the masses, but you don't mind confusing the hell out of me half the time.
Well, it's so easy. All I have to do is talk, and you get confused.
That's because I have trouble following your train of thought there, Mr. Fischler. I really do.
Yeah. You're saying there's a train of thought going on here?
Well, for most people, there's supposed to be, but yours is like a train set. It does go in circles, though. I can eventually catch up.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good. The good thing is that you speak Brianese, so.
I don't know Braille yet. but I know Brian E.
That's true. And that's, which is interesting because there's Brian E's on the podcast, which is PG, and then there's Brian E's in real life, which is R.
Yeah, at a minimum, yes. So, yeah, Brian, it was great checking out Hound. I mean, I'm glad you brought it back to my attention again. The thing is, there's so many apps out there. It's so hard to keep up with them all. But you introduced me to a new one this morning, which I thought was great, 60dB. Which is something I had downloaded and played with, and I was very happy. It was a great resource. It's much shorter audio clips of a variety of topics and everything else, and I think this is something that could catch on.
Yeah, this reminded me, I think the app was called News-A-Go-Go. I don't even know if that's still active. And it was great. I selected about 5-6 topics: news, sports, technology. And one thing I did notice, if you want to kick back and just play, you could play the thing for hours. It's not like 15 minutes and it stops. It's a continuous play where it goes from one topic to the next. And this will be interesting to see how this catches on because it just came out. And the reason this piqued my interest is currently it's on iOS, but I hear it's probably coming to the Echo as well.
Oh, that'd be interesting. Yeah, no, it was good. It reminded me a little bit of like the, of the TED Talks where you had these 15 or 16 minute audio presentations. But the difference is it's a lot more focused. Like you can choose your subject matter, and it's tried to stay within that genre that you had selected, and it worked really well. The audio quality was excellent. Very good productions. A lot of big names in there. So I was very happy with it.
Yeah. It was very interesting, and it's an app I look forward to playing with even more. And like I said, one of the things that piqued my interest when I first saw the article about the app was that it might be coming to the Echo. You know what just came to the Echo and what I've already done is texting to you.
Yes, you did. You sent me a text, and I was like, okay, another text from Brian. Then you called me up. I sent you a text on the Echo. I'm like, what?
Yeah, this is only for AT&T customers. So if you have an AT&T phone plan and you're on the Echo device, if you live in that environment, you can now text from the Echo. Now, let me start off by saying this took me about 4.5 hours to set up.
Wow.
Yeah. I had a couple of accessibility issues, which... Yeah, it was very bizarre. The Amazon Alexa app, one day it works great, the next day it doesn't. And what I found, I didn't think it was going to work at all. It was a weird, you have to authorize your account. And I kept trying to send a text, and for some reason, I don't know if I had the number wrong. It was like a 3-digit code, like 288. Then there was a space and the number 5. So I'm like, well, am I supposed to text 288 space 5? I mean, I've never seen anything like that. That wasn't working. So then I went to log in with my username and account, and of course I couldn't get the fields to activate with VoiceOver, so I toggled VoiceOver off and on. Eventually I got the fields to work, and eventually it was not an easy process. So if you do have some sighted assistance, you're going to want to get that set up. But once I got everything set up, it seems to be working great. You can text up to 10 people, and I only know 3 people, so I've got 7 spaces empty there for new friends.
Okay, so it took you 4.5 hours to learn how to send a text. How much time is it going to take you to learn how to read a text?
Well, I'm still working at that, so... I have not successfully been able to get it to read a text, and I think this is just the beginning. Where it didn't seem like you could cancel, or it doesn't seem like you can edit a text where it reads it back to you and then it just says sending. So you're like, wait, that's not what I wanted to say. But I think this is something that'll develop and get bigger. And that was my big question about the Google Home devices, where I thought they could really take a lead was if you were be able to email, since they have Gmail, but it doesn't sound like that might be the case as of yet.
Wow, I'll tell you one thing. You're lucky you don't have a hammer in your apartment, because you would have gone all Hillary on that Echo device after 4.5 hours.
What do you mean? I would have waited 11 hours to come out and thank everybody that worked their butt off for me?
No, you would have taken the hammer and smashed your device.
Is that a new catchphrase, going all Hillary?
Going all Hillary, yeah. I guess there was a lot of talk about destroying tablets and iPhones or whatever they were, whatever devices she was using. I don't know.
So she pulled a Tom Brady.
No.
Tom Brady?
Yes, exactly. He was supposed to show up with his device, and
he did.
Oops!
At
I accidentally beat it up with a hammer.
Yeah. Rich people be weird. Yeah.
Yes, they.
You know, rich people. If you're listening to the podcast, there are a lot of financially strapped blind people out there that can probably use your old device. So stop breaking them into a million pieces and find a blind organization. Or you can email us in, rich people, at iAccessVO@gmail.com, or tweet us in at iAccessVO, and we will take your old device and get it to a person who could use a device.
That's true. That's very true. So awesome. What else you got on the agenda there, Mr. Fischler?
When we started that segment, I did not see it ending there. So I like that. But have you, since iOS 10 played out, have you tried calling people instead of through the phone, maybe through FaceTime or Skype using Siri?
Well, I have been using Siri to make phone calls for a long time. I'll do it to make voice calls. I'll do it to make FaceTime audio calls. And I actually have done it to connect a couple of times with Siri and Skype. So, and that's worked well for me. And it's nice that now Siri is working with third-party apps, because it was initially only working with FaceTime and or just normal voice calls. But now with the advent of adding Skype to the mix, it's nice.
Yeah, I had tested this out and got it. Took me a couple times to get it working. Trying to call you on Skype, and that was great. I don't get the point. I know it works with WhatsApp Messenger, but why would I text anybody through WhatsApp Messenger? I mean, what's the benefit? Why wouldn't I just text them through my phone?
Well, the issue there is you have an iPhone, and sometimes you'll have people who don't have iPhones, have Androids, and WhatsApp is very popular for doing, communicating with people internationally. Like most people that ask me to do WhatsApp are friends from Europe and things like that. So it's, you have the ability to work with that and to do it otherwise, because otherwise you're dealing with iMessage and other parts of the country. I mean, we're spoiled here in the United States now. Most people get unlimited texting with their plans, except for you, because you have that grandfathered
I'm the one. Yes.
data plan, but people who sign up today, it's unlimited talks and text usually, and the most thing what you pay for now is you pay for your data streaming, your data plans, for how many gigabytes a month you want to have access to.
Yeah. I just don't. Of course, I people outside the country don't particularly care for me. So
that's because you don't know where they're from or what country they're in.
By the way, just for the record, I got all A's in geography, so I don't know where this myth that I don't know that Germany and Italy are different countries came about. What did Nash tell you that?
No, what myth? You said it yourself, trying to be funny on air.
Not everything is meant to be funny, Ed.
Not everything is literal as well.
Not everything comes out funny either. But
I've been to your shows. I know.
Oh, now you sounded like the drunk Irishman in the bar. What he thought of my comedy.
You know what? That was a funny story. Why don't you tell our listeners that story? Because that one cracked me up.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Okay. So I was sitting down at my neighborhood bar. There were two people in there, and I'm going to have to think about this. And the guy buys me a drink, and I'm like, oh, thank you very much. He says, I have to, and I can't do accents, so I won't even try. He had a very thick Irish accent. I have to tell you, I've seen your comedy, and you effing suck. Oh, thank you very much. And he goes, no, you really suck. Oh, okay, yeah, thank you. And then he asked if I did any black jokes, which I said, no, I don't do race jokes. And then he went into religion. I said, I don't do any religion jokes. He says, well, you really suck. Then he got up and he stumbled out of the bar like a drunk guy that he was. And I said to the bartender, who's a good friend of mine, I go, what the heck was that? And he's like, you wouldn't believe who that was. It was the bartender from another bar where I go to test out material. And I guess he's not a fan.
I guess not. But he bought you a drink nonetheless.
Hey, I wasn't going to reciprocate after that, but I normally do, and I guess he will not be coming to Laugh for Sight.
I guess not.
And, it's funny because the night that he bartended, after the show, I had a ton of people coming up to me, so I think he was just jealous that I was getting all the love from the ladies. But
which is unusual because usually that's Nash's domain.
Let me rephrase. Nash was getting all the love from the ladies, and I was just sitting there. But getting back to this whole Skype thing, I had more fun with Siri as well because I tried testing it out, saying FaceTime my mom, and at first it said I'm unable to do that. So then I tried it again, FaceTime call to mom, and it says I don't know who mom is. And then I tried it a third time, and it said there was no mom in my contacts, which there definitely is.
Right, but so how do you have your mom listed? Do you have her first name and last name in your contacts?
Just MOM. I just have one mom.
Oh, okay, so just MOM. But it's showing as a name, and when you speak to Siri, what's happening is the context that Siri's taking it in is it has mom referenced as a relationship. So when you say it that way, you have to let Siri know who your mom is. So the best thing to do is to activate Siri and ask Siri, who is my mom? And it'll say, I don't have any mom listed. Who is your mom? So now you have to say, it's mom.
You see, what I don't get is sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So, yeah, you're probably right. I probably do have to do that and everything.
And that's what I do. I have my wife listed as a relationship, but I did it by telling Siri who she was, and the same thing with my children and my parents. So you just once she knows or he knows or whatever voice you're using, I guess I usually call Siri by a female, but once it's documented and recorded, it'll do it for you. So it'll work out well for you.
Yeah, I'll have to do that, and it's funny, we joked about being international and my lack of where countries are, and we have an international guest, and I know where the country is.
You do? Awesome. Where are we headed?
We are heading way down south, not down under, where we've been before, but pretty far down there south, to South Africa.
Ah, awesome. Let's head over to Cape Town and meet our good friend, Christopher Venter.
Let's go. Now we'd like to welcome in a very special guest. He was a chef. He's a world traveler. He's a blind scooter guy. For all we know, he could be an international man of mystery. How you doing today, Chris?
Hey, Brian. How are you?
Nice to get you online here, Christopher. Finally get a chance to speak to you.
Hi, Ed. Greetings from deepest, darkest Africa.
Oh, it's not that deep. It's not that dark. I've been there. Cape Town is a beautiful city. I was actually there 20 years ago. It was awesome.
You're giving your age away.
Yes, I am. and Brian's always reminding me anyway.
Yeah, I've never been there, but I am a big fan of Toto, who had that one-hit Africa. So that's my extent now. But Chris, your story has been documented out there. Just to let some people know that have not heard your story, you were traveling from South Africa, headed out to Dublin to go to the Guinness factory, and you became sick on the trip midway through and basically ended up eventually going blind within 48 hours, which Ed and I have both had our blindness take years to happen. How does somebody cope and manage and get through and recover after going blind in as little as 48 hours?
Yeah, it's a tricky situation that you find yourself in. Of course, I did manage to complete the trip, and a few months afterwards, when the doctors weren't able to diagnose what was wrong with me, well, it was only when my sight went that they figured it out. And although they managed to save my life, there was nothing they could do about my sight. It's almost like a solitary confinement. You find yourself thrust into this prison sentence, a sentence for which you've committed no crime as such, and your world comes tumbling down, and there's a lot of things you have to figure out then, a lot of time to sit and wonder how are you going to survive. Your first priority being survival, and thereafter, how are you going to thrive if that is the course that you wish to take?
How did you not end up in a complete state of depression? That's what I'm curious about.
People often ask me if I'm crazy, and I always say, well, I hope I'm crazy, because it's either me that's crazy or all the others. You have a choice to make, and you can either face that road and stand there and get run over, or you can do things to move and hopefully find ways around obstacles, because they're not always insurmountable. Many blind people do suffer bad depression. They suffer from isolation. They find themselves in this world where they don't have a support system. I'm very lucky. I've got a beautiful young wife, and my folks are on nearby. I've got some fairly good friends. Fairly, I'll put emphasis on that word, because when you lose your sight, not only do you have this massive change, but this change affects people around you. And as much as I struggled to accept it, there were many friends that did as well, and obviously chose to take a different course. But that's okay.
What in reading your blog and seeing what you're doing and everything else, I mean, I just find it amazing that you've accomplished so much in such a short period of time. Whereas, a lot of people take a couple of years for their acclimation period. You basically were just getting out of the box there and just telling your story almost from the get-go. And one of the things that I'd like our listeners to realize is a lot of our listener base is here in the United States, where we do have lots of services. And, Brian and I live in the state of New York, which is probably one of the best states to live in the United States if you have a disability and blindness. But, I know that you were saying that there was not a lot of resources for you in, I guess, Cape Town and South Africa for blindness. And if there were, you didn't know where to find them. And also, even when you did find technology that would help you out, there wasn't a lot of resources to help you learn how to do it. A lot of that you did on your own.
Absolutely. Of course, I'm in South Africa, which is, I'm sure your listeners all know where Africa is, that little rock across the pond. And South Africa, of course, is the country right at the bottom. So we're almost on the polar opposite side of the globe to you guys. And for me, it's been just around 2.5 years now since my sight disappeared. For 6 months, I was very ill, and I had a lot of time to sit and contemplate and figure out what I was going to do. And luckily, I turned to technology and started listening to clips on YouTube and reading things on the internet, and learned with the help of Apple products, really, how to navigate the online world again, and just chose to help myself, because yes, there is a very, very little bit of assistance for late sight loss, certainly, and for sudden sight loss. If you're a child, there are schools that you can go to that will assist you. If you lose your sight slowly through RP or macula or anything like that, you have this acclimatization period where you can figure things out, put your things in order. I sometimes feel jealous in a way that I didn't have that, because I would have loved to, but I'm sure it doesn't work that way.
Well, how has technology helped improve your life as somebody who happens to be blind?
We spoke earlier of that prison sentence, that solitary confinement. I like to think of it as it's almost like a bubble that you're trapped in, and the world around you can see, and they can move, and they can continue with their lives, with their course, and here you are, isolated, and you just have to listen. So you have to find other ways to see. You have to use your ears. You have to use your sense of smell and your sense of taste and touch. You need to seek out. So, of course, discovering iOS and screen readers made a massive difference. And as soon as I could listen to clips on YouTube and realize that blind people can communicate, I think up to the point of becoming a blind man, I don't recall ever meeting another one myself, and it was a steep learning curve, but one that I fought furiously to get over, to the point that I now have about a dozen people that I am able to assist and teach and casually train, how to navigate their iPhones, their iPads, and their MacBooks and things like that, because in an accessible world, a blind man can't do anything that a sighted person is able to.
You know, it really, to me, just dawned on me is truly incredible that Ed and I have been so fortunate to speak with so many blind people all over the globe. You know, you in South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, United States, and thanks to Apple, we're all connected because of them and what they've done with VoiceOver, which, when you sit back and think about it, it's really incredible. And I have to ask you, what do you like most about Apple? And then, of course, because we like to be fair and balanced, what do you like least about Apple?
Well, let's start with the negative. The least is the cost. Their products, you know, certainly on a South African income, are quite inaffordable for most. So the majority of people are really, they don't have access to that. I always say that rather than put a blind person through this Braille lesson and navigation lesson and all sorts of things like that, give them an iPhone, because that is what will ultimately change their life, and set them up with a training course that they can learn how to use iOS. If they can connect with the world, the other things they will learn because they have to. It's the isolation that's the hardest point. Of course, we're quite isolated from the rest of the world, even though the world has become a smaller place thanks to the advent of the internet and technology. My friends are spread across the globe, and without even being able to pick up the phone and dial a number or look in the telephone book, check my old notes or reference check to figure out what their phone number was, there was no way of communicating. To be able to email, I've got buddies in Atlanta, buddies in the States. I studied in the States and I spent quite a bit of time working in the Caribbean and that area. So a lot of my friends are there, a lot of friends in Europe, I have friends in Australia. They're scattered around the planet. And without this technology, without specifically, I'll give my thanks to iOS, because that has been the easiest, most blind-friendly, most intuitive platform that I've found. The best investment that I made was a Bluetooth keyboard. That really allows me to navigate and move quickly on my devices.
Yeah, I agree. The iPhone, the iOS platform was the quickest, shortest learning curve for getting, the ability to deal with accessible technology, to open up the world again, to be able to text and email and surf the web and look up tutorials on YouTube and things like that. So it's just been pretty amazing.
Yeah, Facebook and Twitter and audio books and YouTube clips and to stream your favorite radio station, everything is really, really accessible. If you just get the basics, it's intuitive. It helps you along. It teaches you itself.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for blind people, the only thing, where we're sharing our knowledge with each other with the internet, the only thing the internet would be cat photos from sighted people.
Yeah, or memes that are inaccessible to us anyway.
Yeah. Now, Ed and I have spoken of Bespeakular, which I believe one of your country mates was the brains behind, and you told me a very funny story, how you gave them a run for their money and tested them out. Please do share that story with our listeners.
Okay, so Bespeakular is the app in question. And it was developed by a young South African girl as well as her Italian business partner when they were in the States at Stanford on a summer school project. And it's an app that allows a group of sighted volunteers to be paired with the blind. So I can snap a picture of, almost anything with my mobile phone and send it through to this group of volunteers, and they'll describe it. So this is an incredibly useful device or app if you wanting to check the expiry date on a carton of milk or some fresh goods, or make sure that slice of bread doesn't have mold growing on it, or that strawberry is not rotten. Your dosage on medicine, it can help you read that, because of course you'll snap a picture and you'll send a little voice message or a text message through to this group of volunteers. And it generally takes about 30 seconds and you've got your first reply. Within a minute, the process through it. It's a 3-step process. It's really, really easy. And you're then able to rate the sighted volunteer, they call it a sightling, and say, thank you, perfect, you did well or not. And so I tried, the first thing I did, being a chef, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and the first question I asked them was around an onion. Is this a white or red onion? And I was quite shocked because very quickly I had a reply. And it was a red onion, and I could make my dauphinoise potato bake accordingly. So I thought I'd challenge them, and I even at one point strapped an apple to my wrist with a little bit of electrical tape and snapped a picture and said something along the lines of, "Is this a genuine Apple Watch, or have I been had by the dodgy guy on the street corner?" And of course, I had about 10 responses, and most of them were quite serious. "Chris, you have been had. This is a problem." It's personal. It's not with all due respect, I mean, I use TapTapC and some of the algorithm-based systems and apps as well. They're great, but it's so nice to have that personal interaction. If you drop a cap in the driveway, as I have done, walking the dog, and I can't find it, and then to go scratching around all over on my hands and knees, as I'm sure you guys have had to do many times in your homes looking for little things, you just snap a picture, and then someone will say, "Oh, it's 10 feet forward," or whatever,
Yeah, I've used the app at least 10, 15 times, and every time it's been a 5-star response. I've yet to get a bad answer, and it's been very, very helpful. And you can't beat the price, at least as of right now. It's a free service and everything. Obviously, eventually, I know they might become a paid service because everybody's got to make money, but it is a fantastic app. If you're not using it, you're definitely going to want to check it out.
Yeah, Chris, I am a huge fan of TED Talks, and from what I understand, you have your own TED Talk coming out here shortly. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
All right, yes. Well, by the time this podcast comes out, it will certainly be released. I was the first blind man here in Cape Town and in South Africa, and from what I understand in Africa, that presented on the TEDx stage. So TED stands for Technology, Education and Design, and it started in the States. It's a massive organization that has these ideas worth sharing. So it's a group of speakers that present to an audience, a collected audience that listens to their crazy ideas and interesting ideas. So there's been a lot of famous people, and there have been around a dozen blind presenters on the TED stage, but none, obviously, in this region as yet. TEDx Cape Town is the big one. TEDx, the X means it's an extra independently organized event, and these happen all around the world. Some of them are big, some of them are small. This is the biggest one that happens in Africa, the biggest TEDx organization in Africa. And my TED Talk was, the theme for the day was hear and listen. And when I was first approached with this idea, I thought, well, that's how I see, by listening. Audio is my sight. So it's fitting. So I went through the process, and I was eventually shortlisted as a speaker. And it's quite a big process. You go through a mentorship program where you have a speaking coach or a coach that specifically guides you and helps you prepare, and the stage you then present to a massive room, a massive audience with an IMAX sized screen behind you. So I decided to make my talk the first fully accessible TED Talk, and that means that even the video that I use in my presentation, we had it audio described. So we had a narrator come along and put a description to what was happening. So I used a short collage of clips from my scooter trip where I had something of an exaggerated narrator showing exactly how we as the blind people can still enjoy something. 4 guys riding scooters through the mud, a baobab tree in the distance, something that would have totally been inaccessible can become cool. And it was a great experience, a super day. And if the guys are interested in watching my TED Talk, we'll share the details a little bit later.
We'll make sure to have a link to it if it's out when we drop our show, and so people can click on it and go check it out. But that's pretty awesome. Apple could take a little lesson from you. They recently updated their accessibility landing page for accessibility on Apple.com. And they had a video as part of the introduction, and it is not video described. And from what I understand, the button on Safari was not even accessible. So,
look, it's a learning curve. I've gotten angry about things like that, and I've gotten frustrated. I now have the attitude. Well, at the moment, I'm on that crest where I say, let's rather just educate them. There was a tour group here in Cape Town I saw posted on my Facebook newsfeed a day or two ago. A tour group that specifically brings blind people, a blind group, to show them different spots. And they posted a whole lot of pictures and all of that about their adventure, and there was no description, which I found kind of ironic. So rather than get all huffy and puffy, I decided to rather just send them a message and say, hey guys, come on, get with the program. So hopefully that that lights a fire under their bums.
Yeah, it's interesting because you run a blog that some of our listeners are probably familiar with called Blind Scooter Guy, which you design using WordPress. How accessible do you find the whole WordPress experience?
Well, let me just start by telling you where the Blind Scooter Guy thing comes from. I was always Chris the Scooter Guy, being an avid scooter collector, vintage Vespa scooter collector and enthusiast, I call myself. I was known as Chris the Scooter Guy. There's so many Chris's, Daves, Mikes. So everybody, when they got a call from me, I was, hey, it's Chris the Scooter Guy. Oh, we know who that is. And then I became Chris the Blind Guy. I didn't want to just be Chris the Blind Guy. So that's where the Blind Scooter Guy came in. and I blog as Blind Scooter Guy on WordPress. And WordPress I found to be quite accessible. I use my iPhone or iPad with a Bluetooth keyboard. I find that to be easier to get in there, and it takes about 15 minutes to set up, and you could be blogging yourself. It's a nice way of expressing yourself and just getting your story out there. And for me, it was a nice way to learn to, well, firstly to type in the dark and to navigate around any type of software as such.
Yeah, so you didn't have to set up any special codecs or anything to make it. It was just fully accessible once you got the blog up and running?
I looked at a couple of them and I found WordPress to be the most accessible. I did chat to a blind friend from Australia, and she blogs on WordPress and suggested that would be the right one to look at.
Yeah, no, and I know they've got, for those of you looking to start a blog, they're on obviously any computer, their iPhone, I'm sure they're on Android as well. And Ed, I bet you didn't know this, but as we were preparing to do this interview, I found out that our editor has a nickname, Blind Motorcycle Guy. Did you know that?
Patrick?
Yep. When I was telling him about Blind Scooter Guy, he said, well, I drive a motorcycle, and told me about a few of those experiences, so I'll have to get Patrick back on to have him go into those. But now, before you went blind, you were a chef. How has cooking or preparing food become different for you now that you're a blind person?
I was a development and training chef that specialized in working in remote destinations. So I'd go into places where nobody else would go, where the money was more generous. And, well, islands, little remote islands, for example, oil rigs, things like that. And I would train the staff and set up their supply chain and put new kitchens in place, purchase new equipment, design curriculums at culinary schools, that type of thing. So I was quite well achieved. I got to the point where I was doing less cooking and more management, more kitchen organization and management. But I loved cooking, and I used to guest lecture at a culinary school here in Cape Town. It's kind of second nature. Little things changed. For example, my cutting board. I prefer to use a cutting board that's got a little bit of an edge around it. And although I can chop an onion lightning fast, I don't want it to go flying all over the floor as it slides to the edge of the board. So now I started with a smaller knife rather than a big knife, and cutting on a plate rather than on a board. So it's got a bit of a rim. And I now have a board that has a rim. And when you lose your sight, you need to become very, very organized. If that TV remote control is not on the table that it needs to be, and in the exact spot on that table, you're not going to find it. So in the kitchen, the fridge, the grocery cabinet, the spice rack, they needed to be organized. They needed to be coordinated. The microwave had to have little silicon braille bumps put onto the keypad so that I was able to navigate that. So certainly things changed, but it was more a case of organizing. If I consider other blind people that do woodwork and welding and things like that, I guess they've done it all their lives. They're not really changing things. And I guess that when I was cutting an onion as a chef that was sighted, I wasn't really looking that much anyway. So what's the difference?
Mm-hmm. Good.
Yeah, you mentioned organization, something I don't think we've ever covered on this show. How did your wife adapt to having to probably learn herself how to not move things? Or does she move things and make your life more difficult? How did she adapt to all of this?
For example, when we drive in the car, I'm still the navigator. Luckily, I know the layout of the city quite well. So I say, take a left just up ahead here now. You're going to find a building on this right-hand side, a grey building with a red sign. And she's had to certainly become more aware of all these things. As far as stuff in the home goes, just leaving things in the way. If it's in my way, I'm going over it or through it. That took a little bit of time. There were some challenging moments, but luckily she has a lot more patience than me and adapted quite quickly. And much quicker than other people. My parents still say, "Oh, it's over there, just over there, there." I've had a guy that was cutting a piece of wood for me where he didn't understand that I couldn't see it. So his way of explaining it to me was to speak louder and louder and louder the more I asked him. That doesn't work. I've had a waiter in a restaurant, try to hold the menu close to my face for me so that I can see it. I'm 100% totally blind. There's no way, buddy.
Chris, I've heard you talk about the focus issue before, and how you'll go to the store, you'll have five items you need, and you'll go there, and those are the things you're focused on, and you get them, and you'll go there with your wife, and you'll come back with 30 or 35 items.
Well, that goes for employment as well, Ed. People don't realize that a blind person is actually a great person to be employed because they're not going to, number one, they're going to appreciate their job firstly. So they're not going to be looking at the classifieds every 5 minutes and looking at other jobs. They're not going to be distracted by all the jokers in the office. And in all probability, the client that's speaking to them on the other side of the line or via email is not even going to know that they're visually impaired in any way. They're going to focus. They're going to do their job and hopefully appreciate that they have a job.
Yes.
There are 285 million visually impaired or legally blind people in the world, 40 million of which are totally blind. I've heard your stats in the States, but internationally, less than 1% of all the blind people around the planet are employed. That's a shocking statistic. It doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't.
Yeah, no, it's. We've talked about the numbers here in the United States and Canada before, but the numbers globally are it's appalling. Come on, world, get with it. Hire blind people. Now
accessible technology will fix it.
Exactly. Technology has made our lives unbelievably rich and fulfilling. Now, with me, I have my comfort zones, my local establishments, which I've been to a million times, and I'm comfortable there. But you kind of strike me with all your travels as like a blind Hunter S. Thompson. Every time you're traveling to someplace new, how do you get so comfortable so quickly in a new environment?
Well, you just have to put yourself out there. And from the time that I was a young boy, I've been addicted to adventure, whether it was reading, the Tintin stories. I don't know if you have Tintin stories in the States where he goes wandering around the globe. And Bill Bryson is one of my favorite authors. And the way he describes he's hiking the Appalachian Trail and visiting strange villages and looking at the characters. And when I read his books, I realize that not all of the ways that he describes what he sees are visual. Sometimes it's what he smells or what he tastes or what he feels. So you're able to visit Paris, for example, and go to an old church, and you might not be able to look at the grand ceiling, but you're able to feel the walls and feel the tile floors. You're able to eat the pain or chocolate outside and the crepes and things like that, and taste them, and you're able to you smell the fresh lavender in the air as you're walking around the Palace of Versailles, and listen to the bustle of the tourists and the excitement in the air. There are other ways that we can see. Your sight is just one thing that's wrong with you. Everything else is fine.
That's a great analogy. That's great.
And now, what do you love most about writing? Because that's where your passion is now.
For years I worked as a chef, as we said, and I enjoyed it very much. But the whole time I knew there was something else. I wanted to be a storyteller. To be honest, Brian, I'm a lazy bastard. I want to travel. I want to eat nice food. I want to experience different things. I want to have adventure. And the writing is a tool. It's a way that I can do this and share my stories with the world. It's an avenue. It's a release. It's like an artist needs to paint. I think...
I've heard you say that, you started this while you were sighted. You wanted to be a travel adventure writer while you were still sighted. And I listened to an interview where you actually made a comment that losing your eyesight, you felt might have been your destiny.
Well, I guess we don't know what our destiny is. I always wanted to be a travel and adventure writer, and now I am a travel and adventure writer. I just never thought that I'd become a blind travel and adventure writer. That's certainly an interesting genre that I've been thrust into. But perhaps it was, we don't know. We're dead for much longer than we're alive. And faced with our mortality, I guess we then have to question what we do to share our stories that they can live on forever. And writing is a way that they can.
Yeah, well, now... Scuba diving is something else that I read that you really enjoy, but you got to explain to me, what does a blind guy get out of scuba diving?
Okay. This is a tricky one. So before I worked as a chef, and during the time that I worked as a chef, I not only worked obviously around the Caribbean a lot, where I got to dive some of the most beautiful reefs and walls in the world, and obviously it's a very visual thing. But back here in South Africa, I actually formed part of a group of people that did search and rescue work. So a lot of that type of work, whether it be for a drowning victim or something that's dropped off an outboard engine that's dropped in a dam, dropped off of the back of a boat, is very low visibility, or most of the time zero visibility. And let's put it this way. When I put my gear on and I get into zero visibility water now, I'm a lot more comfortable than what I was as a sighted person. So there's no reason that a blind person cannot partake in that career if they want to do searches, if they want to do, we have different grids that you lay out. So you sweep, you have something called a circular search, where you have basically a rope that gets dropped on a heavy weight at one point with a buoy at the top, and you swing circles around it with another rope attached to it, and you release it 1 foot at a time, and you feel your way around. A blind person is going to be a lot more comfortable in that environment than a sighted person. They're going to be freaked out, as I was for a few months.
Do they still have sharks in the ocean?
Oh, let me tell you, when I was down there, they have great white sharks right off the coast there. You wouldn't get me scuba diving in that water.
Nah. I could walk into the ocean just up to my ankles, and the Jaws theme music pops into the back of my head, and I go running back to the beach. So, you won't catch me in that.
That movie did more bad for good than for sharks, because it made everybody afraid of sharks. But there are more people killed every year by dolphins than sharks. So it's still, it's just a gruesome death. And I guess we are depleting the ocean stock. So we're taking their food away, and then of course we're diving in cages and chumming the water and teaching these sharks that they need to associate us with their food. When their taste of food is in the water, here's this guy, so he must be food. But most of the shark attacks are mistaken identities. I'm a big advocate for the sharks. I say bite the brines.
Bite the Bryans?
Bite the Bryans.
Why the Bryans? What did I do to the sharks?
If they don't want to be in the water, then that's good. Bite their ankles.
Yeah.
Sharks are your friend, Brian.
I thought it was a fat joke because I need to lose weight, and I was a big size meal.
You would fill them up quicker than if you got me or Chris.
Hey, but here's what I learned. If I go scuba diving with Ed, All I need to do is swim faster than him, and I'll be fine.
I'll tell you a funny story about diving. They say that you should have a big dive knife strapped to your leg so that when a shark comes, you can protect yourself. Well, that's not entirely true. You just need a small knife, just big enough that you can cut your dive buddy's ankle to allow you to swim away faster than him.
Good point. You see, yeah, this is an educational podcast, Ed.
There you go. So, I'll tell you what, Chris, you've had a great run over the past couple of years here. Where do you see the road taking you for 2017? You have any special plans? Anything in the works?
Well, my TEDx talk is, as I said, it's about to be released. So by the time this podcast goes live, it will be. And there's a couple of speaking events. I'm involved in a group of a Toastmasters club called Toasthead, so I'm doing a little bit more speaking. There's a couple of big scooter rallies, and of course next year my book will be released. It's at the moment being edited, which is called How I Became the Blind Scooter Guy. My second book is already in the works, and that will be released during the course of the year. So next year is about that. I've got a couple of other writing projects that I'm doing. One is called Tales from the Rails. So it's all I'm fascinated by trains. I've got a little bit of a fixation with trains. A little bit of a Sheldon Cooper there. So I love train travel. So I've been doing a series of articles all about the accessibility and the adventure and how a blind person can enjoy that. Because getting on a plane, you sit there, it's boring. With a train, you can wander around, you can chat to people, you can feel your way, and you hear the clickety clack. It's a experience. You can go and eat something and taste something in the dining room or have a drink in the saloon. So trains is for me a great way for a blind person to travel. So there's a few other projects, and then in 2018 I'm going to be traveling from Paris to Palermo. Paris is of course in France, Palermo is in Sicily, by train. The main source of travel, the main route will be by train, and then it'll be something of a relay race. So I'll be the baton in the relay race, where I get handed from host to host along the way. And at each destination, it'll be a 5 to 6 week trip. So at each destination, we're going to have a little different adventure. So we want to have a by any means of transport sort of adventure. So whether it be a donkey cart, a hot air balloon, hiking, walking, swimming, a sidecar, an old Citroën, a old Fiat, vintage cars, horseback riding, you name it, we're going to do it. We're wanting to create my next story to write about.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, I don't even know what I'm doing tomorrow, and he's got plans into 2018, Ed. Actually,
that's pretty awesome.
I do know what I'm doing tomorrow. I'm flying to Florida. But what about assistive tech? We're at the end of the year here. What do you hope to see from assistive technology in 2017?
Well, from a software point of view, I'd like to see more rules and regulations come into place that means that all of the websites and content are forced to become accessible, because 285 million people, if we can't see that little shopping trolley in the top right-hand corner, we're not going to buy that camping chair from your site, for example. If we don't know that it's checkout when we hover our icon over it, there's no way of doing business. I'd like to see enforcement. I'd like to see regulation that, and perhaps that has to come from the consumer, that states you will fix these websites, you will make them accessible, or you will not do business with us. That would be great. And there's some wonderful apps coming out. We mentioned Bespecula. There are apps that put filters over websites and make them more accessible. There are wonderful advancements in the medical field. There's the technology and the medical field. I think that tech is what's going to be our savior in our lifetime. But certainly it's interesting to see what's happening with things like the Argus Eye and the Orion Eye and ARA. I think you guys have spoken to those guys and all of that. I think in the last year or two, there's been more technology and medical breakthroughs than in all existence. So it's interesting times we live in. Unfortunately, we're going to have to be the guinea pigs.
Yeah.
The lab rats, pet rats. Yeah.
Well, this, Chris, has been an absolute treat. I mean, you're an inspiration to even us blind guys over here in the United States. And, I mean, you're all over the place. It's pretty incredible. Why don't you tell our listeners how they can keep up with everything you're doing and your upcoming travels?
Cool. Well, I write under the alias Blind Scooter Guy, obviously, and that is how I'm accessible. So you can go to blindscooterguy.com, and that will redirect you to my Facebook page at the moment. We're busy working on a new website, which will soon be the platform. But I have a page on Facebook called Blind Scooter Guy. On Twitter, I'm at Blind Scooter Guy. On WordPress, you can just search Blind Scooter Guy. And please connect with me, and you'll get your blind buddy down in Africa, deepest, darkest Africa.
Hopefully, I get a chance to go back because I really did enjoy it there. And as beautiful as the countryside was, and like I said, I was in Cape Town, I was in Johannesburg, and I was up at Sun City. And the thing that really struck me the most was the smiles. And today, 20 years later, I still remember the smiles for all the people I met, and they were just broad and just so genuine, and I really did have a great time there.
Why is everybody smiling there? Are they insane?
No, it's just a different way of thinking and living, Brian. It's I just truly enjoyed it. Out of all the places I've been in the world, South Africa is still one of my favorite destinations.
Well, that's cool.
Some people live to work, and some people work to live.
That's true. And some people just like to pay the rent.
So at the moment, the rand exchange rate, the rand and dollar exchange rate is very favorable for you guys to travel here. So it's a great holiday destination, and there are many things that blind people can do here, beautiful sights that can be seen. And when I say sights, I say S-I-T-E, not S-I-G-H-T. Mm-hmm. And most certainly there are great experiences to be had by both the sighted and the visually impaired. So
we may have to organize a blind visually impaired trip to Cape Town and come see you.
I'll be waiting. I'll be ready. Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, this has been a lot of fun, Chris. I'm looking forward to following everything you got going on. And I always love meeting people that I guess are, blind and live all around the world and hear what their life is like. And just from hearing interviews with you and reading your blog, it's been an absolute treat to get to talk to you over the phone.
Yes. Thank you, Chris. We really appreciate you coming on, and we'll look forward for your TED Talk. And if it's out, we'll make sure we put the link in the show notes for our listeners.
Thank you very much, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Great. Thank you, sir.
You're listening to Brian and Ed on iAccessVO.
Well, Ed, that Christopher is just an absolutely fascinating guy, and one day maybe I'm hoping to get together with him and have a beer. And it was interesting because we first discovered Christopher through Twitter, which is how I've connected with hundreds of blind people globally. How about yourself?
Yeah, same thing here. I mean, we had him follow us on Twitter. I basically was going through the followers one day and spotted Blind Scooter Guy, and I saw once. So I followed him back, and I started seeing his tweets, and they seemed interesting and informative, and started looking him up, and then I connected with him on Facebook and stuff. But absolutely, man, it's a great way to meet and resource with other people.
Were you cyber stalking him?
No.
Okay.
I wasn't cyber stalking him.
Okay. Just checking. I noticed I was promoting Laugh for Sight, which we'll talk about a little later coming up. But and we've got so many great comedians on the lineup that unfortunately I can't fit them all into one tweet because there's so many people on the lineup, and the tweets can only be 140 characters. So it got me checking out the native Twitter app because I haven't used it in a while, and unfortunately I couldn't find a way to tweet longer, but I was impressed. It seems like they've made great strides as far as accessibility improvements with the native Twitter app.
Yeah, they've been making a lot of movement. I mean, I think similarly to what Facebook has done, I believe that they're also doing, if pictures are posted, I think they will be interpreted on Twitter as well. Is that right?
Yeah. If some of them are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hyper tags or whatever they're called.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. So they are getting better at that. And yes, I've heard good things about the Twitter app. It's very accessible now. A lot of people are using it, but I have to tell you, my go-to is still Twitterific.
Mine too. I mean, Twitterific is fantastic. I mean, it's on my home screen. Actually, I have to tell Siri to open Twitter because I always forget where it is, where I know where Twitterific is. And, unfortunately, Tweetless, which was an old one that we talked about, that has, for some reason, that's now dead. You can't even use it anymore. That was the first, because when I first got the iPhone, Twitter was completely inaccessible. And Tweetless was my go-to app, but that is now gone by the wayside. So Twitterific, from time to time, they even mention VoiceOver improvements, and they continue to do a great job. I mean, it is just a fantastic app, and they're constantly adding new features. But the one feature I couldn't find between any of the Twitter apps that I use was how to tweet longer than 140 characters, which I know you can do now.
Yeah, you can, and this is something I was actually doing for a while. It's I use a product called Tweetymail, TWEETYMAIL, and it's from tweetymail.com. It's actually a service where you actually tweet via email. And, you can get all kinds of activity through that. You can follow people using Tweetymail. You can send tweets via Tweetymail. You can retweet with Tweetymail, but the key feature there is that you can also tweet more than 140 characters, which is something you were looking for.
So it's not something that's PC specific. Somebody on a Mac could use this program as well?
Yes. So you could. It's a web-based sign-up thing, and it links to your email. So wherever you do your email, if you do it on a Mac, you'd be able to use Tweetymail.
Or an iPhone, probably.
Oh, or an iPhone as well. Yeah, absolutely. Because I get my Tweetymail notifications in my email, and I see them on my email on my iPhone all the time.
Is it free service?
Yes, it's free service. It does have a paid service. The free service will let you do, I think, most of the features. But if you're doing a lot of like email broadcasting and things like that, if your volume is going to be more than just like individual usage, you are going to have to fork up a couple bucks. But it's like everything else, it's not that expensive.
Yeah, no, I'm going to have to check this out after we do the show. I'm curious about that, and hopefully it's completely accessible. Sign up on the Mac site. Sounds like you didn't have any issues signing up on the PC side.
No, not at all. And this would be good for you too, because I know when you travel, like when you just went to Florida to go see your parents for Thanksgiving, and you had your big event, what you could have done rather than be worrying about scheduling stuff or trying to get things done, you could have scheduled those tweets before you left, and it would have been taken care of for you.
Yeah, but you know me, I have 76 devices, so
yeah,
sending out a tweet, and by the way, I know we talked about rich people smashing their devices earlier. Any rich people, if you get a brand new Mac Pro and you don't like it, instead of smashing it, let us know, because that's one device I'd like to check out.
Yeah, well, I want to check out the new MacBook Pro with the OLED bar, because I've heard some really good things about it.
I still want to call it the Olay bar. But I actually went kind of old school with technology here. I know I've talked about the Pro Football app, which I love because I can get almost any game. Well, two teams that for some reason do a fantastic job of blocking you from listening to their games are my New York Giants and the New England Patriots. I mean, they just go above and beyond, where I had some trouble getting the Monday night game on radio, and I ended up putting the Monday night game on TV, and they spent 8 minutes, so exactly half of a quarter, and they mentioned one play on the field. I mean, come on, guys. Blind people do watch football. You got to at least mention more than one play. So this caused me to actually get a really cool pair of headphones called Sino Beats that have an FM tuner built into them.
Nice. So you're actually listening to the live radio feed?
Yeah, it's not streaming. Now, the great thing about this pair called Sino Beats, I think they only make one model, is it has Bluetooth capability as well, so it can connect to my iPhone. And that way I can listen to streaming radio if I want to from any of my servers. It has a micro SD slot, so if you want to put anything as far as your music on there. And it also has a 3.5, so if you want to connect to a pair of speakers or something like that, you have a multitude of options. But the one selling point and the reason I went for a pair, and this pair at $35 US, was touch gestures, Ed.
Yeah, you were telling me about that. So you're actually controlling this headset, which is an over the ear headset, right? Correct.
Over the ear.
Okay. So you're actually controlling it by just using finger gestures?
I have not. It's got a bunch of probably 4 or 5 buttons on it. I don't even know what they do because I don't need them. Yeah, it's really cool. Like you touch the left earpiece, which I guess has a sensor in it, and it's all one finger gestures. One finger double tap to pause audio. It was a 3-finger tap to scan all the local stations and everything. A flick up to change the volume up, flick down, flick left or right to change radio stations, and it seems to work fantastic so far.
Now, and you're using this with Bluetooth, or have you used it with the plugging in the 3.5 headphone jack into any devices yet?
I've used it in every way possible. I've actually listened to Downcast podcasts with it. 1-finger double tap worked for pausing it. I was able to fast forward and rewind in the podcast by just flicking. Connecting up to 3.5, yeah, it works fine connecting up to a pair of 3.5 speakers and everything.
Okay, and I know you love your Bon Jovi, so did you crank up your music? How's it sound?
Sounds good. It doesn't have any noise canceling. That was the one other feature I would have liked, because I do plan on wearing these, if I go out to a bar or something and they got the Yankee game on or the Giants game on. The advantage to not using streaming audio is if you do use streaming audio with sports, it's always 1 to 2 minutes delayed, so you can't really enjoy, because people are going nuts and applauding, and you're like, well, what happened? And 2 minutes later, it happens for you, So this I have noticed, because I put WFAN Sports Radio on the Echo device, and then I had it on the headset, and it was like 2 minutes behind on the Echo device. Yeah, so I don't know why streaming radio is so far behind.
I got to tell you though, Brian, I've done this in sports bars too, but I've done it with using Tunity TV, and I don't think I've ever been off by more than 30 seconds.
Yeah, Tunity's a way to go as well. I just always forget about Tunity for some reason.
Yeah, well, it's a great app, but it's not the easiest thing to get it synchronized, because you do have to point the camera from your iPhone at the TV set. So you may need sighted assistance, or at least if you don't have to have great vision. You could be a very, very low partial, because all you're looking for is to see the light on the screen and try and center it and just give it the taps so it'll sync. Well, but when you get it working, it works well.
And one thing you told me, because it was funny, I introduced you and another friend to this app, and I think you guys use it more than I do. One thing that you told me that helped me out was you want to take the photo or do the scan in landscape mode.
Yeah, that is correct, because you kept going to me, I can't get this thing to work. And then the one time I was with you and I saw you trying to do it, I'm like, I think I know your problem, Brian. You're like, what? I said, you have to turn the phone sideways. Yeah. And that's the thing, you get these apps today, there's no instructions. I mean, that's a simple thing, but there was nowhere where you had read or heard to turn the phone sideways.
Well, I guess because a sighted person could probably see, and when they see it, they can see that it's sideways. So, that if they're holding it vertical, then to a sighted person, they're like, well, why am I holding it vertical?
Yeah, and I guess that's what I did. I could see the field of view, and the viewer was for landscape mode, and you couldn't see that. Yes.
Yeah, but I'm picturing the movie Airplane, and do you remember the entire plane turning their heads to the side so they could see what was going on? I picture everybody using the app with their head tilted to the side.
There you go. But that is a great app. It does work well. So
it is. it is a fantastic app, and again, you can't beat the price of these. I have no idea how these things make money.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's the scary part. I don't mind. That's why I don't mind paying for apps if I notice some kind of model where they're going to be there, because that's the issue. I mean, look at my old phone, my old 4S. I had 350 apps on it. You have like 275 something plus apps.
I'm up to 295 now.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, they work well, but you can't use them all every day. So what happens is you just gravitate to what's most accessible and what is most user-friendly, and the rest of it kind of goes to the wayside, which is, like something like Hound we talked to at the beginning of the show. It's a great app, but it wasn't quite there yet. So, it disappears for a while. Then, they make some improvements. We take a look at it, and for some people it works,
Yeah, which is why I don't delete a lot of these things off my phone unless if I download it and it's completely inaccessible, it's gone in seconds, And anytime I hear when I download an app and I open it for the first time and I hear it automatically say landscape mode, 99.9% of the time that app does not work with VoiceOver.
Yeah, so just quickly to get back to the headphone thing. So my headphones of choice for Bluetooth now are I got another set of the MPOW MPOW Magneto Bluetooth headsets, and I'm happy with them. I mean, and the prices have gotten much more reasonable. I don't know what's going on, but it seems like Bluetooth headphones have dropped dramatically in price, and they're running in range. They used to be like $29 to $50, and now they seem to be going around $19 to $25. And all the Magneto, the MPOW line, the Magneto, the Swift, and the Sport are all within that range, and it's a good product.
Yeah. The one thing I've still have issues with though. For some reason, all the Bluetooth devices I use never seem to really work good with Siri, or dictation, I should say. Normally, I turn them off and I dictate, and then I go back to hear and make sure it said the right thing. So that's one thing I would like, and maybe it's because I buy cheap Bluetooth devices.
Yeah, well, either that, but you and Siri have a love-hate relationship, because even without without Bluetooth headsets, you still don't get along with Siri.
I tell you, I'm cheating on her with Alexa and Hound. Hound. Those ones seem to understand me. I don't know what it is with Siri, man. I mean, it's just she's got an issue with me, man.
We have no issues, Brian.
What are you going to say? The last show you were talking about marrying Siri, and now it's like, I'm not so sure.
No. I wasn't talking about marrying Siri. I was talking about marrying the iPhone.
Oh, that's correct. Yes, you're right.
But this is the last chance you'll really hear us talk about it. We're only a few days away from Laugh for Sight on Monday, December 5th at the world famous Gotham Comedy Club in New York City. If you're in New York, come on down for Laugh for Sight and Dogs. I mean, the lineup has gotten even huger as we have legendary comedian Robert Klein, who you heard on our last podcast. You've got Joy Behar from The View. Judah Friedlander has signed on for the benefit. You might recognize him from 30 Rock as well. And, we've got Jessica Curson, Stacey Pressman, Daryl Wright, Sean Eli, host Maria Melito, Allie Klein, and, of course, Nash and me. Tickets, www.gothamcomedyclub.com, www.laughforsight.com, or by calling 212-367-9000. The silent auction cocktail hour doggy adoption starts at 7 p.m. with the comedy show kicking off at 8:30 p.m. And I got a funny story for you about Judah, which Judah's a good friend. He's done Laugh for Sight in both New York and L.A. And for those people familiar, he always wears these hats, world champ. People ask, what are you the world champ of? Everything is what he says. And that's, what his whole act is based on, is that he's the world champ. Well, anyways, one day Judah and I were doing a show at the Comedy Cellar, and Judah comes up to me and he says, Brian, get over here. And he grabs me. He says, my hats are now in Braille. And I had to explain to him that, Judah, I don't read Braille. And he was very despondent and disappointed, but very funny guy, a big fan of his, and great guy and everything. So, well,
good. I'm looking forward to hearing him on at the next Laugh for Sight. It'd be great.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be a lot of fun. So, hard to believe, Ed. Year's almost over. What did we just hit 30?
We just hit 30.
Wow. You think we'll hit 40?
I think we're going to blow through 40.
Unless, of course, Y2K16 takes the world down, then, or would that be Y217? I don't know.
That'll be 17 now, my friend. So
was there ever a bigger disappointment than Y2K?
Not for me. I was happy nothing happened.
That and the Mayan calendar. Those were two big disappointments for me. Anything else you want to add?
Nope. I think we've had another good show, and Let's get busy, and good luck at Laugh for Sight, and I'll see you soon.
Sounds good. We are out.
You have been listening to iAccessVO. If you'd like to contact us with ideas and suggestions for future podcasts, please email us at iAccessVO@gmail.com or visit our website at www.accessquest.org.
Laugh for Sight and Dogs. Tickets are now on sale for this year's Laugh for Sight and Dogs on Monday, December 5th at the world-famous Gotham Comedy Club. This year's benefit is a unique partnership between Laugh for Sight and the Mayor's Alliance for New York City Animals. This year's show will feature legendary comedian Robert Klein, Joy Behar from The View, Jessica Kirson, recently seen on CBS's Kevin Can Wait, along with all-star comedians Daryl Wright, Stacey Pressman, Sean Eli, Allie Klein, and Brian Fischler with his guide dog Nash. This year's benefit will be hosted by Q104.3's Maria Melito. The evening will kick off at 7 p.m. with a very special silent auction presented by AmFund with once-in-a-lifetime unique bucket list vacation packages, along with paintings of cats and dogs. There will also be a very special doggy adoption for special needs dogs. Tickets can be purchased by going to www.gothamcomedyclub.com, www.laughforsight.com, or by calling 212-367-9000. Won't you come out for two very special causes that everybody can get behind? Curing blindness and saving dogs. Everybody's a winner. Don't miss out.